Can something be anticipated by everyone and still somehow be a huge surprise? Today, we learned the answer is yes, as Joe Biden announced he was dropping out of his re-election bid 3.5 months before the election. So, what happens now?
Another twist in what has already been a historic election cycle.
President Biden has just announced that he is ending his re-election bid.
Biden wrote, quote, "I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down."
It's the last-minute bombshell America has been calling for. Joe Biden pulling out exactly 4 weeks before the Democratic convention, leaving his party without a nominee.
In the instant he announced it at 1:46 p.m. this afternoon, everything changed.
Eyes now turning to his potential successors.
This race will be decided by you.
First up is Kamala Harris, the obvious choice as current vice president and staunch Biden ally. Next up is... Okay, looks like it's Kamala. Almost all the predicted competition, Gavin Newsom, Josh Shapiro, Pete Buttigieg, have endorsed the Veep, making it all but a done deal.
Mixed emotions. You'll have to wait and see.
I think she would make a great president.
I think a lot of the country will dislike her.
The president endorsing her straight after his announcement, as Kamala released a statement saying,
"My intention is to earn and win this nomination."
There's going to be some closing of ranks, but there are party officials, party leaders around the country that want a true open process with multiple candidates.
Which is why Obama is one of the few major figures not to endorse Harris, instead voicing his confidence in a process from which an outstanding nominee emerges. Today, the new campaign quickly turned ugly.
Kamala was in on it. She covered up Joe's obvious mental decline.
Our president is in good shape, in good health.
The Trump campaign releasing this ready-made ad within an hour of Biden's announcement.
They know Kamala owns this failed record.
But also going viral is this 2019 commercial Harris made for her original run for president.
This is Trump. And in every possible way, this is the anti-Trump.
Already, Trump's lead has slipped, betting agencies saying Trump's chance of winning has dropped 5% since Biden's announcement, which could be why Donald's allies seem so worried.
They held a primary. People, they had ballots. They filled out circles. They went to the voting booths.
So what will all this mean for a presidential race that's already shaping up to be one of the most dramatic in history?
We beat Donald Trump once and we're going to beat him again.
Well, Michael Starr Hopkins is a Democratic strategist who has worked on the campaigns of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. What do you reckon? Is Kamala Harris the right person to beat Donald Trump?
She is. When you look at her record, you know, she sat at the side of Joe Biden and had 15 million jobs added to the American economy. They put in caps in place to make sure that healthcare is more affordable. She's a former prosecutor who's used to prosecuting felons. This lines up perfectly for the Democratic Party and really excites young people and minorities, women. This is a coalition that Democrats are excited to run against Donald Trump.
If what you're saying is true, though, we would have seen that Joe Biden himself would have been wildly popular throughout his whole presidency, even before we discovered what looked like his senility in the debate. And yet that just simply wasn't true. Are you perhaps over-egging the level of appeal that Kamala Harris will have as part of that administration?
No, not at all. When you look at the actual polling data in Wisconsin, the senator there, who's a Democrat, is outperforming Joe Biden by about 4 points. When you plug in a young Democrat, someone like Kamala Harris, the numbers are actually in Democrats' favor. What it shows is people like Joe Biden. People like Joe Biden's policies, but just thought that his age was a hurdle that Democrats couldn't get over. When you factor in Kamala Harris's record, plus the fact that she's young, charismatic, and running against a very flawed candidate in Donald Trump, it's a perfect scenario for Democrats.
Michael, most democracies around the world have had a female leader. The US never has. The one time you tried to do that, Hillary lost to Donald Trump. Is that worrying anyone in the Democratic Party?
It's certainly a scary prospect. We all remember what 2016 was like. I was on that campaign. I think Republicans should be very wary of 2016, though, because in many ways, the situation has flipped. You've got a Republican Party that's overconfident, that's heading into an election up in the polls. And I'll remind them, the Hillary Clinton campaign was in the very similar situation, and we ended up losing that election. So it's on Democrats to make sure we put forth the pressure, we put forth a vision, and remind Republicans, remind Americans in general about what a threat Donald Trump was. This is a guy who tried to overthrow a Democratic election. He has attempted to pass classified information. He's uniquely unqualified to be president. And I think as voters are reminded of that, you'll see Kamala Harris's numbers go up.
The attack ads are already out. The line of attack is really interesting from what we played in our package, saying that really this was a Democrat cover-up over the state of Joe Biden's mental acuity. They all knew it. They covered it up. They tried to get away with it. Eventually, the cat got out of the bag at the debate, and Kamala Harris was part of that cover-up. Do you think that line of attack has teeth and might stick?
No, not at all. I think people are relieved at this point to see a new race. Well, now voters got what they wanted. They're going to get to see a young, charismatic leader in Vice President Harris taking on Donald Trump, a guy who is going to be close to 80 by the time they would assume office and has been showing signs of cognitive decline for years.
If you were running the Trump campaign against Kamala Harris, what would your line of attack be?
That's an interesting question. I don't know if I want to give them any tips. If I was Donald Trump, I think I would step aside and let J.D. Vance.
So yeah, it's a fair strategy because, of course, the Republican campaign famously watches The Project in Australia to find the tips for how it's going to structure.
Big fans.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, Michael, it's an interesting time in American politics. Thanks so much for your insight.
Take care, guys.